Hey there, friends. Today we're going to talk about email sender reputation. So, if you do cold email or email marketing, this is something you definitely need to know about. And I think most people have an idea of the basics, but there are probably some details that are not widely known. So, let's talk about them. This is taken from a presentation or a document that I put together called the Cold Emailer's Deliverability Handbook. So, in this, I go through everything from A to Z, like basically everything I know about cold email deliverability. If you'd like to get the whole guide, I'll link to it in the description to this video on YouTube, or if you're seeing this on Twitter, I'll put it in a comment to this tweet. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, sender reputation. Like you've probably heard people talk about sender reputation before, but you may or may not appreciate just how many different factors it covers. So, first of all, there are public blacklists. You're probably aware of these. Like you can go to MX Toolbox, or there are other tools. I link to some of them below in here in this document. And you can find out if your IP address or your domain are on a blacklist. So, a blacklist is a list maintained by organizations that track spam activity. And if you're listed on a blacklist, it can severely impact your deliverability, as many email providers will reference these lists when they're making decisions about what to let through, what to reject, what to send to spam, etc. Some of the blacklists that you may have heard of include Spamhaus, Spamcop, and Barracuda. Not all blacklists are created equal. There are a lot of blacklists out there, and most of them, frankly, don't have a very big impact on deliverability. But the big ones, like these that I mentioned, they can tend to tank your deliverability pretty badly. So if you find that you've been listed on one of them, you'll want to try to figure out how to get off it. Most of them have a delisting process that you can follow. And, depending on your luck and whether you're still sending the kind of offending messages, or if you're on a public, or I should say a shared IP, maybe it wasn't even you. But depending on all these factors, you may or may not have luck getting removed, but it's worth a try. Okay, so next is the sender score. So sender score is a numerical rating from a company called Return Path. It's pretty well known. It's pretty widely, paid attention to. The URL is senderscore.org. And it is based on several factors like spam complaints, rejected emails, and list hygiene. So, in other words, are you sending to emails that bounce and things like that? So sender score applies to IP addresses, not domains. We'll talk a little bit more about what that distinction means in a minute. And it's on a scale from 0 to 100, with 100 being the best reputation and anything under 80 being kind of shit. If your sender score is under 80, you're probably starting to run into problems with deliverability. So this is a good general indicator. It's not the only metric to consider, but it's definitely worth checking it out. If you know your IP address for your mail server, and you go to senderscore.org, you can get a free check of your rating. It'll tell you what it is, and that's helpful. Then also, here, maybe I'll go to this one real quick. This blacklist checker, multirbl.valley.org. If you go here, this will also, so you put your IP address of your mail server here, and one of the checks that it runs is against sender score, and it'll tell you what your sender score is. Not every IP address that you put in here is going to have a sender score, but if yours does, then it'll tell you that here. So that's very helpful. Okay, next up is private blacklists. So in contrast to public blacklists, which are, as the name suggests, public, and you can query them using those tools, these private blacklists are internal lists maintained by individual email providers or, possibly spam filter operators. So Gmail and Outlook and whatnot likely have their own private blacklists. So they're not publicly accessible, but they can significantly impact how your emails are treated within that provider's system. And if you're on one of these, you generally will have no way of directly knowing, but you may observe sudden difficulty in delivering to or from a specific email provider. As far as getting off of these, I don't know. I mean, you might have some luck in reaching out. Like if you suspect that you're on one, you might have some luck in reaching out to that individual provider and trying to get confirmation or delisting. But I would imagine that they're probably pretty reluctant to do that. Otherwise, like if they were intended to be public, they'd be public, right? Okay, so next we've got individual recipient filtering. So even if you're not on any blacklists, the individual recipients that you send to can mark your emails as spam. Maybe you've done this yourself, the emails that you've received. And if this happens, your future emails to that particular recipient will also very likely go to spam, and they may even be rejected outright, usually with an SMTP code 550 or something like that. Again, you may not be on any blacklist, but you may have trouble reaching individual recipients who've already marked your emails as spam. If enough of these individual spam complaints come through on a particular provider, like Gmail, then that ESP might start filtering your emails altogether, even if they were previously getting delivered well to other users' inboxes. So in other words, if you get enough spam complaints from a particular provider, you might end up on their essentially private blacklist. Okay, next is engagement-based filtering. So email providers also look at your engagement metrics. So, whether people open, click, and reply to your emails to gauge your reputation with their users. And if they consistently see that your emails are not getting engaged with, they're not getting opened, they're not getting replies, people aren't clicking on links inside, whatever, then that can lead to your emails being filtered or sent to spam, even if you have a good sender score and you aren't on any blacklists. So your best bet there is to send emails that people actually want to receive. You can do that through having a great offer, making sure that your targeting is on point, and copy is not super important, but your copy will help as well. So just sending good emails that people actually want to receive, that are useful, that they'll respond to, that can help with this aspect of filtering. Okay, so now let's talk about domain and IP reputation, because I think this is something that people don't really understand that well. So your sending domain and your IP address have separate reputations, and a poor reputation for either one can affect your deliverability, even if the other one is has a good reputation. So your domain, you probably know this, right, is the part of your email address after the @ sign. So if you're sending from russell@tryclickfunnels.com, then your domain is tryclickfunnels.com. And you can go and plug that domain into these blacklist checkers and whatnot, and find out if you have sender reputation issues associated with your domain. Your IP address, on the other hand, is a numerical identifier for the server that actually sends your emails. So IP addresses are a way of finding some resource or server on the internet. They uniquely identify a resource on the internet. And IP addresses, the kind of current ones, IP version 4, they're comprised of 4 1 to 3 digit numbers separated by dots. So they kind of look like this. Like this is an Outlook one, I believe, 52.101.42.16. Depending on the email service provider and the plan that you're using, you may be the only one sending emails from that IP. Or in the case of like Google or Outlook, you're probably sharing it with hundreds or thousands of other users. If you're sharing an IP, everything that the other users that are using that IP do can have an effect on the IP's reputation and thus can affect your deliverability. And while that may sound bad, a dedicated IP is not always better. A shared IP with long history and good reputation can outperform a dedicated IP with less history or some reputation damage. And again, so these blacklist checkers and other deliverability tools will generally have the option, either in the same tool or in a separate tool for you to enter your IP address. And you can find out whether your IP address is on any blacklists. You can find its sender score and things like that. So, I hope that clears up some of the kind of confusing aspects or misconceptions around email sender reputation. Like I said, I wrote this whole document, the Cold Emailers Deliverability Handbook. We go over, everything from start to finish about deliverability, including the current developments, like in May 2024, which is when I'm recording this. Outlook has been having some issues lately, so I talk a little bit about that and what you should do about it. Talk about the other technical factors in deliverability, like the email authentication, sending patterns, warm up, all that. And the content factors in deliverability that can impact whether or not you land in spam. So if that sounds interesting, you can find this guide in the description or in a follow-up post to this post. And finally, if you are interested in, so if you're worried about your deliverability and you think you might be having issues, at NeuralJets, cold email deliverability is what we do. So we offer these free deliverability checkups. You can find this link in the doc. If you want one, you suspect you're having problems, just book in. We'll get it sorted. We'll either be able to fix it right there on the call, or maybe tell you that you probably don't have a deliverability issue at all. Or if it's something more severe, then we can come up with a plan to move forward and fix it. And then finally, we also offer cold email inboxes. So these are, custom SMTP setup inboxes, an alternative to Google or Outlook. And if you're interested in that, check out this document, how to send 250,000 cold emails a month with top tier deliverability without giving all your hard earned money to companies who hate you. And that's Google and Microsoft. They don't want you doing cold email. They make it hard for you. We make it easy. So if that sounds interesting, check that out. And if it's something you want to explore, book a call with us and we'll get you sorted. All right. Have a great day.